Welcome back to Rock and Roll Rugby, and man, now we are like 3 days away from the World Cup opener. But that's not the one we will be discussing today. That will be the last one I will discuss just before the World Cup starts. So today's one I'm going to be looking at Scotland versus the Springboks. So what do I think is going to happen in this game? I'm going to try and approach this really from a perspective of looking at the last two games and being really realistic about it. Now, we know Scotland did pretty well against France. They were able to win one. France was able to win one. I think the team morale is really, really high. Now, we know from a Springbok perspective, if we look at the last two games, they've been outstandingly good themselves and have improved by leaps and bounds since they stopped kind of like changing the team as much and trying new combinations. When you look at the team, I think they will probably go for a pretty safe team in the sense of a lot of experience. They'll probably go, a lot of people want to see Moody and Estrazen on the center pair again. I would be surprised. Look, I'm not counting it out, but I think if I know the way that Jacques Nienaber thinks, I think he's going to play Delalendi with Jesse Creel on the center combo. He's been quite vocal that is his first choice. So I think that he'll play them. I suspect he'll play Cheslin Colby with Kane Moody on the wings. I think we'll see Leroux on fullback just because of his experience again. Willemse from the bench because they'll probably go for a 6-2 split. As for the front pack, I'm not too concerned who they play, to be honest. I think key positions will probably be Malherbe, probably to me the best prop in the world when it comes to scrummaging. Maybe not the best at carries. With him, I'd say a Malcolm Marx. Obviously, Kolisi will be there as the captain. And then I would like to see Peter Steph the toy in there. And yeah, then looking at a Scotland perspective, I think they'll also go with pretty much the team they played against France. Probably going for guys like Skuman, play Gilchrist on the locks, and guys like Watson as your loose forward. The thing is, I think what it all comes down to for Scotland is really their back line. Because they are the type, I'm not saying they can't play it up front, they can definitely. But where they're so dangerous is just their basic running backline type rugby they play. I think for me everything with Scotland rugby evolves around Tui Piloto and Finn Russell, because Finn Russell, number one, they like to use him to loop around Tui Piloto, kind of that where they play Tui Piloto first receiver and then Russell comes around, or quite often just Russell distributing the ball, getting it out to those very two dangerous wings, which is, of course, your Van der Merwe and Steyn. That's really, really good finishers. Van der Merwe, probably one of the most dangerous wings in the world. And we know Kinghorn's also been really amazing, stepping in that fullback position for Stuart Hogg. So, a good team, good backline. I think it's going to be a good game. But let's react at some highlights that I've looked in the last few games, and I'll tell you what I think. So yeah, we start with a line out, and you can see it playing it in slow motion just to show you guys. From a line out perspective, I think Scotland's not bad. Their rolling maul to me is average. I wouldn't call it outstanding. You could see here they were playing against Georgia. Now, I'm not saying Georgia is a weak team when it comes to their front pack. They are really strong up front. But, I have to say, if you look at the facts, the Springboks definitely have the strongest front pack. And their maul defense is pretty strong. So, I just don't think them with rolling mauls, they'll be getting anywhere really with the Springboks. They'll probably not be able to get much success there. They would want to look at running it. Like you see there, they like to run it off Piloto, and then from a second phase, they like to run it. Russell likes to distribute the ball. We know how good he is at distributing the ball out to the wings. I mean, this move was super simple against Georgia. Nothing to it much. One phase, run the crash ball, and already sucked in the defense. But just again, another example there where, they're trying the rolling mauls against Georgia and just no success. Georgia's actually kind of driving them backwards. Now here we can see the ball come out. Now this is what I mean by them just distributing the ball. they like to do the run around to create that space for Russell, because Russell likes to run from deep. That gives him the opportunity to play the little cross kick, which he loves so much, and he so often finds Van der Merwe with those cross kicks. So what they do is they loop around, usually Tuipulotu, to play it rather to the center, and Russell comes from the back. Sometimes they use someone else, like in this case you could see they used a different player. But it was actually Tuipulotu. So there you can see they use Tuipulotu, play it back to Russell to create that depth for him, because if he sits back a bit, and Tuipulotu either takes the crash ball, depending on what the game looks like or how it looks for them, or he plays it back to Russell, and that creates the space for Russell to basically gauge, look outside, has he got space with Steyn and Van der Merwe, and then he gets those kicks through. Yeah, again, a line out from Scotland. I don't think their lineouts are bad. They were pretty decent against France, so I don't think they'll do too badly in the lineouts against the Springboks. It's just the rolling mauls. I do not see them doing that much to the Springboks in the rolling mauls. I don't know if they'll even attempt to use it that much. Now, as you can see, this is really what Scotland will do. They will either do the loop around or they play the wide pass. They don't use their outside centre all that much. Every now and then they'll try and run a hard line on the outside centre. But for the most part, they try and play it to Tuipulotu like that. Then you have the come around of the fly half. Usually that would be obviously Russell. Not in this case, but exactly DNA type play. First time they didn't get it right. The second time doing exactly the same thing. And Georgia just didn't read this. Now, the thing for me with this type of game is I just think with the Springboks rush defense and the way they come up, they might not have the space and be able to play from that kind of depth to do the run around and play it to Tuipulotu, because he'll probably be under a lot of pressure and not be able to always get those balls away. Now here you can see again, if they're close to the line, they make that call. Do we do the loop around? No, we just distribute the ball because they know there's space out wide. You can see that's exactly what they do. Shoot the ball out wide. It was a bit of a messy ball, but they just know if they get it to their wings, there's no ways you're going to stop them. And if you look at this try for first try against France, it was very soft. And it just shows you what they can do. They can really punish you. And with the Springboks, having their wings sometimes being so flat, if they can get the loop around right with Russell, they could be really, really good. There again, you can see in the scrums, not great. I can tell you now the Springboks are going to be a bit stronger in the scrums. And they weren't really able to manage the French scrums. And then from set piece, you could see the French, their defense is not outstanding in reading the game. It was kind of a poor read from them in this game. But defensive wise, they've got some holes. They're not necessarily, they've got some flaws. They're not necessarily the best with their defense. Here you can see Scotland left too much space for Dupont to run in that game against France. And you could see Dupont is such a playmaker. You cannot give him loads of space to run around. And here you can see very poor defense generally, So if you start running the Scottish defense, you will create opportunities. They are not, for me, the best backline defending team. Very good on attack. Offensive team, outstanding. But on defense, if you can run them, we know in the Springboks, as soon as they start opening the game up a bit, and they start getting good forward ball, if the forwards have done their work well and they start getting good forward ball, they could be running the Scottish as well. Here's another example. You can see Russell, distributor of the ball, always involved in every game. And sometimes, what's so interesting about it is Scotland keeps it very simple. They do a one-on-one man run, try and run through gaps like you see there, and just get the ball out. But for the most part, just sometimes very, very basic backline rugby, basically one of two moves. They either do the loop around where Russell comes around one of the players, usually to a Tuipulotu, or they just distribute the ball and just get it through the hands. And that's what they do very, very well. It's just a running type rugby where they just get the ball to flow through the hands. And that kind of game can pose a challenge for the Springboks because their wings are always very flat. And if Russell is given the space to be able to kind of get those kicks through behind the wings, because we know the rest of the back lines is up very quickly, which creates space behind them, putting Willie Leroux under a lot of pressure when they do those kicks. Then looking from a Springbok perspective, I think what I just wanted to show is this is what I think the Springboks will be doing this game. I think they will purely just be bashing it down, they'll just be bashing it face through face against Scotland. They are going to play with their forwards. They're going to use their power up front. They're going to probably play the 6-2 split, which I have no doubt they will. I don't think they'll play a 7-1. That would be too risky. But they'll do what they do best. They're going to, try and retain possession, because that's how they basically take other teams out of the game. They hold on to the ball. They'll slow it down, keep playing it through the forwards, and then they've added this new dimension to the game, where they can quickly, from the rucks, move it out wide and score beautiful tries. And this is all because Springbok rugby has changed, where they used to play 2-3 pod forward type play, where now they're starting to play more of a 3-2-2, where they have more of the forwards in the back line, which gives them more options to spread. Now, what I wanted to show there is just the way the Springboks defend is very, very flat. So, not flat, but really flat. They really come up very quickly, but they don't give you space, so they'll suffocate you. So I think it comes down to the question, when Scotland's going to play them and they want to play those loop arounds from Tui Piloto, will he be able to get it right? Because if the defense is really quickly up on Scotland, I don't think Piloto is going to get those balls out. And then further on, I think a guy like Peter Steph du Toit on an open side flanker, if he puts a lot of pressure on the likes of a Russell and kind of chase him down, or even a Faf de Klerk, you could see a different thing in this World Cup game, where if the Scottish are going to be shut down with their backs, kind of very similar to what happened with New Zealand. Their backs were shut down in that game against the Springboks, the last game, and that pretty much neutralized a lot of their game. I think Scotland's very dependent on their backline game, and it's going to be, I think, the determining factor in this game for the Springboks are going to be, can they shut down that Scotland backline by doing this, kind of being up very quickly and then putting that pressure on. But if they do that and Scotland's able to get it quickly through their hands to the likes of a Van der Merwe, Steyn, all those guys are super fast. You cannot underestimate what Scotland can do to you if they get it out to the wings. King Horn has also been outstanding at these running type games. So the question would be is, can they get it through the hands quick enough to the wings to create these opportunities for themselves, because the Springboks will be up, with their rush type defense, pressing up hard. But if that comes off for the Springboks, I do not see the Scottish will struggle. The Scottish will struggle if the Springboks are able to really put that pressure on when it comes to the defense. Here's another good example. You can see how quickly they shoot out of the line. So putting a lot of pressure on the defense. And even you can see there, they played it back. The loop around type of thing that you'd see the likes of Russell like to do. They tried to do that there. Wales tried to do that. Trying to play the loop around similar to what Russell does. Come from the back, loop around. And you could see how well Kane Moody, you timed that. And yeah. On the other side, it's high risk, high reward, guys. Because if that pass went out and Kane Moody couldn't get it, that would have been a try. So for Wales. So this is Springbok rugby. Springbok rugby is all playing on momentum. They'll play on momentum, and if the momentum, I'd say, in the first 20 minutes go their way, I see them, in the first half being really good, and we know the Springboks will come back with a really good second half as well. if the momentum don't go their way and you got Scotland being able to outsmart the Springboks in their rush defense. So if the Springboks are going to play that rush defense, they are able to play off of Piloto and get it back to Russell, to have some time on the ball, to get those kicks through to Van der Merwe. Because if you get the kick through over the wings that's up very much, if they can get those kicks through, then obviously there's opportunities for Van der Merwe, Steyn, those types of players, because that is, I think, what Scotland will try and do. I just don't know if it's going to be that easy for them. If we look at both, if we start with both forward packs, I really don't think that Scotland's going to be able to get the better of the Springboks when it comes to the forwards. I think the Springboks are going to have some serious rolling mauls going. And if they can get themselves into Scotland's half on attacking ball with lineouts, I think it could be a tough day for Scotland out, because the forwards are really going to dominate in those rolling mauls. They'll be stronger in the scrums, in my opinion, as well. I don't think Scotland will not be up for it. Probably in scrums they'd be able to compete. But as time goes on, I just think the Springboks will start wearing them down. We know the Springboks will come up with that depth of that front pack and the players that can come up second half. I think they're going to wear Scotland down in the forwards. The big question will come around the backs. Now, if the Springboks are wearing Scotland down up front and they keep getting good forward ball, then you'll start seeing the Springbok backs run. And I have my questions around Scotland's overall defence in the back line. They've shown some flaws in the last few games against France. France, some of those tries that France scored, it almost looked easy. Because if you're going to leave, it's almost that if Scotland's going to leave space for Springboks to run, they could score a few tries like that. On the other hand, if the Springboks, and it's not if, the Springboks will play the rush type defense, because as much as it's high risk against a team like the Scottish, it's probably one of the most dangerous teams to be playing the press type defense that the Springboks love so much. So I am concerned for them playing that press defense, but at the same time I know if you want to neutralize Scotland, if they're going to be able to put enough pressure on the likes of Russell, if they're going to be able to neutralize Russell for most of the times, and it'll be a back and forth. Sometimes they'll get it right to get that loop around across, and Russell being able to maybe make one or two moves there and get those kicks through, which I think they'll focus a lot on the cross kicks on the wings like they do. I think they'll do more of that, try and get it into Russell's hands, because from a backline centre perspective, the Springboks will defend pretty well. It's with the wings being up where the opportunity lies for Scotland. So if they can get those kicks through, get it back to the ball to bounce right for them, you could see a Van der Merwe score some tries there, But with that said, if the Springboks have done enough research and they've done their homework, and they've got guys shooting out of the line onto Russell like they do quite often, the likes of a Faf de Klerk, if Pieter Steph de Toy can do the hard work to get to Russell, if you have the likes of a Creel and a Delalendi, one deciding to shoot out to neutralize Russell, it's a very predictable game that Scotland plays. Now they say the Springboks play a predictable game, but they've added some variation to the game. From a backline point of view, Scotland do one of two things. They either play it to Tuipulotu and then do the run around to create the depth for Russell, where he then assesses, should he be going for the cross kick or does he run it? Or if they're closer to the line, they just play it through the hands. So if the Springboks have done their research and they neutralize those two moves, I don't think the backline can be that dangerous, because their rush defense will suffocate that. It makes it really hard for Scotland, because I think they would enjoy more of the Springboks play the old type of front pack rugby, where that sucks in your forwards, and that means your backline then has the opportunities to run, where now you have to say, they're not going to have all those opportunities, because a lot of the backline, a lot of the forwards now play in these pods of two, where they don't necessarily always commit to all the rucks. Guys, I'm not going to give my prediction in this game. I'll be giving all my predictions for all the games just before the World Cup. And then lastly, I just want to say to all of you that watched my last video where I was predicting the pools from a Southern Hemisphere and from a Northern Hemisphere point of view, that's not who I am saying is going to go through in the pools, guys. I was extremely looking if it's Southern Hemisphere form or if it's Northern Hemisphere form. I know there's going to be a mix there, obviously, between North and South. It won't just be only South or only North. There's going to be some type of mix there. And you know, Ireland's got a very good opportunity in this World Cup to do really well. They set up well for this World Cup. Some of your Pacific Island teams like your Fiji. So I know there could be a mix. So just thought I'd say that. But anyway, if you enjoyed my my little analysis or reaction to this video, hit the subscribe button below. We keep growing this channel. The World Cup is starting in 3 days, and I'm going to be with you right through the World Cup. So if you don't get too annoyed with this voice, hit the subscribe button. I'll catch you in the next one. Thank you. Bye.